Hi, good afternoon. Keir Starmer and Albanese of Australia are playing a highly dangerous game with all of our lives. In this podcast, I'll explain exactly what I mean. I'll also tell you how many people are on the terror watch list. And also, I'll explain why I think the West has got it completely wrong when it comes to terrorism, completely wrong when it comes to Israel, and about how now, after Manchester, and indeed now after Sydney, they've got to take notice of what the Australian people and what the British people believe and want. Stay with me. Because when I say that Keir Starmer and Anthony Albanese of Australia are playing a dangerous game, I'd go even further. I'd say it's almost Russian roulette with our lives, innocent people's lives. I'm talking about political recklessness. I'm not talking about violence or threats and not collective blame. I'm saying recklessness in the face of known extremist threats. Recklessness when the United Kingdom, and I found out this morning with a simple Google, has around 40,000, yes, you heard me right, 40,000 individuals on terrorism watch lists. Australia, one of those two guys who committed that horrendous crime in the last 24, 48 hours, he was under surveillance by their security services, but still it was allowed to happen. You've got to ask the question, why? MI5, this is me quoting now, is aware of 40,000 people in the UK who pose a potential terrorist threat to all of us. These are figures reported by the Home Office and security sources right back to 2020. This number is not a single active watch list, but a broader database of individuals who have been assessed as presenting some level of risk. There's around 3,000 individuals who are considered to be of high concern and are under active and regular surveillance, so they live amongst us. But then there's closed subjects, over 40,000 individuals who were previously investigated but are not under active constant surveillance, but authorities, and this is the killer line, believe there's a risk that they could re-engage in terrorist activity. It's very similar this to the paedophile risk all those years ago, where they told us there was a multi-agency approach and these people would be kept to watch on. Of course, it's impossible. Now we're not just talking about the abuse of children, we're talking about potential terrorists living amongst us. And that's before you go on to consider the way the British police force and our politicians have dealt with, for example, the Palestinian demonstrations compared to others. So today, I'm not trying to spread panic, but I'm trying to say, what the hell are they up to? It's as if they're waiting every time, not just here in the United Kingdom where I'm based, but it would appear the same in Australia as well. I'm saying this is reckless, absolutely reckless. I'm saying it's almost Russian roulette, and I'm saying it's wrong and it needs to stop because it's recklessness when a synagogue was attacked in Manchester and when hundreds of thousands, it was 300,000 they reckon, marched through Sydney, whilst anti-Semitic hatred is dismissed as nothing more than legitimate protests. When they marched in London and when they marched in Sydney, which was on a much bigger level, they were shouting from the river to the sea. It was a convenient excuse to actually preach hatred of Jewish people on the streets of Australia and on the streets of the United Kingdom. And what did our politicians do? I'll tell you, jack all. Albanese is as bad as Starmer. It's like open the door and let everybody in to our respective countries. Ignore what the common people want. So this isn't about race. It's not even really about religion. And it's not about silencing political disagreement. I agree with protesting. But I don't like, and I've never enjoyed or felt they were necessary, the Palestinian demos and the way people mix up Jewish people with the Israeli state when it suits them and separates them when it doesn't. So this is about leadership. It's about responsibility. And it's about what happens when governments refuse to enforce the same rules for everyone because they're afraid of backlash, or shall I go even further? They're scared of being called a waithist. But I've got one big question. Why do all these people want to come and live in a progressive liberal culture? Why do they want to bring their outdated, outmoded culture with them? And then I've got to ask you a question. How many warning signs do the authorities ignore before inaction, this is a hard line, becomes complicity? How many warning signs before inaction becomes complicity? Because the Jewish population in Britain, and from what I've been reading today and watching on the TV, it's the same in Australia. They've been saying that this is getting worse for months, years even. And our governments, both in Australia and in this country, have not done anything to stop it. Agree or disagree, put your views in the comments. But I'm saying Albanese, right? He's the PM of Australia. I'm saying he's as bad, if not worse, than Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, if you don't know this in Australia, we call him two-tier Keir because he likes to have one set of rules for the people who are been here for years, regardless of their colour and the rest of it, and another set of rules for other people. It's about time that this nonsense stopped. Are you with me or against me? So let's start today's little thing. And if you want to join in, feel free. Just write your comments and I'll come to them in a moment. This is an extra show because I've had time to really think through this whole subject. And I believe the West, the very structure of Western democracies is right on the cusp of being wiped out if we don't stand up to this threat. So let's start with one number that should stop any serious government in its tracks. There's around 40,000 people on the terrorism watch lists in the United Kingdom. No, that's not a typo. But it's also not a sign of success because a watch list is not a victory. It's surely an admission of risk. Yes, it's good we've got them on a watch list. One could ask, does it underestimate the threat? I don't know. But actually, if we know they're all there, that's a bloody big risk, isn't it? It certainly should mean we shouldn't be letting anybody else in flip-flops at Dover. And if that's racist, then so be it. It, of course, isn't racist. These people are criminals trying to break into our great country. Australia's had its own problems with this in the past as well. It also means that the state believes someone may pose a threat, but either cannot or will not act decisively on this threat. So the obvious question to me is, what's the point of a frigging watch list that grows every year whilst attacks and attempted attacks continue to happen? I'll point you to Manchester, to the Synagogue. I'll point you to Manchester again, the arena bombing when little children were killed. I'll point you now to Sydney. But of course, the government tell us resources are stretched. Well, of course they are, because you're letting in every Tom, Dick, and Abdul to the country. You're not assessing them. Let's look at Sydney. Those two guys, they're of Pakistani heritage. I believe the younger one was born in Australia. So what's the reaction today from Albanese? Exactly the same as Starmer and Yvette Cooper when she was Home Secretary. Oh, let's ban guns. Let's have more gun control. Australia has got some of the tightest gun control in the world. But you can ban guns. But then what will these terrorist nut jobs do? They'll use a car. They'll make a bomb. They'll produce ricin in the kitchens of the foster homes of daft English people who've been looking after them when they pretended they were only a child, when actually had a beard bigger than mine. I'm not making this up. These are things that have happened. It's things that are happening. So we're told resources are stretched. Well, in Britain's case, I've been saying for weeks, it's time to declare a state of emergency. We have got people living in our country who not only want to kill us, they want to rape white girls. We've got the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. This Labour government had to be dragged to do a public inquiry into the industrial rape of white girls. Why? Was that a case of resources are stretched? We have allowed, because we're tolerant, we've been tolerant of the intolerant. And I would suggest after Sydney, after the synagogue in Manchester, that enough is enough. And how come it's one community that's causing these problems? I don't see this problem in the Sikh community, the Jewish community, and I don't see it in the Hindu community. Do you? We've got to call this out. That doesn't mean that every Muslim's a terrorist. But unfortunately, it does mean at the moment, nearly 98% of all our terrorists are from that community. Now, I know the government will say, oh, there's a rising tide of far-right extremism. Well, how about getting on top of that as well then? Or tell us how many are on the watch list for that. I bet it doesn't even get to 2,000. Now, let's move on. We're told surveillance is complex. Of course, there's too many. We're told prosecutions are difficult. Well, why? Because you tread on eggshells and there's a whole army, a legion of leeching human rights lawyers who constantly want to undermine our democracy. Are you with me or against me? That needs to change. All of their excuses, none of them answer the core issue, because public safety is not theoretical, it's not academic, and it's not optional. The first duty of any Prime Minister, are you listening, Mr. Albanese? Are you listening, Keir Starmer? The first responsibility of you is the protection of your citizens. And clearly, Albanese, you have failed. So don't give me this hand-wringing liberal nonsense when you're the one who allowed 300,000 people to march across Sydney Harbour Bridge, basically at least just criticising Jews, but it wasn't that, was it? It was Jew hate. If 40,000 people are considered potential threats in the UK, then one of two things must be true. Think it through logically. Either the threshold for being listed as a terrorist suspect is too low, I doubt that, or the threshold for intervention is far too high. Whichever one it is, it's me, you, the public, carrying the risk, not Starmer. So I'm not here demanding a police state. I'm not asking for a clampdown. I'm just asking for our respective governments in both countries now to realise and understand the threat and be honest about the threat. Put all your political correctness, all your woke nonsense to one side and protect your people. It's also this about asking why known extremists kind of allowed to sit in limbo, almost like sleeper cells, getting radicalised further, in this case, obviously within the family, whilst politicians reassure us everything is under control. And don't be a racist. Don't go on a Tommy Robinson thing and be fearful of the far right. Because when something is under control, you don't end up with permanent emergency measures and permanent fear. Let me take you to Birmingham. Let me take you to the Christmas market in any city in our great country. Why is there huge bollards? Why is there armed police? Why are people scared? Because of the threat of Islamist, listen to my words, Islamist terror. Don't believe me? Well, that brings us to Manchester. Not history, not hypothetical, something that happened just a few weeks ago. A synagogue targeted, a Jewish community placed under protection again. So now we have police cars outside synagogues. It shouldn't be like this. And of course, the language coming from the government is the same. Oh, it's isolated. It's unconnected. It's a lone wolf. There's no wider threat. We've contained it. Well, until the next time. Ask yourself something honestly. How many isolated incidents does it take before a pattern is acknowledged? We've allowed people in our country to either come into the country or even be here for a long time, even breed in this country, who hate us. Hate our very way of life. Jewish institutions across the UK don't need convincing about this. They already live with barriers, guards, police presence, not because of paranoia, but through bitter, lived, real-life experience. And yet, when anti-Semitism is discussed, leadership suddenly becomes hesitant. It seems like it's fair game to attack Jews, but not Muslims. It's not fair game to attack either. It's racism. It's religious hatred. And it has no place in modern Australia or modern United Kingdom. Do you agree with me or do you disagree? I'm coming to your views in just a moment. But I think today I'm telling you some real home truths. And we need leadership that is going to grasp this and get on top of it. Because when we start talking about Muslim terror, the language softens. The clarity disappears. It's something to do with Gaza. And there's a justification for it every single effing time. The excuses multiply. This is what political caution looks like in practice. I'll go further. It's not just timidity. It's absolute shitting themselves. The only way to describe our leaders, they are scared stiff of this community, either because of the so-called red wall in this country, and they need that Muslim bloc vote, or they are physically scared because these people will shout Allah Akbar and blow themselves up. Those two guys in Sydney, they had no intention of escaping. They knew they were going to die, and that's where the nature of this terrorism is different. And this is what we've got to be honest about. We've also got to be absolutely honest and say, it's not all Muslims. Of course it's not. And it was great to see, I don't know if he is a Muslim, but I noticed a lot of the lick-spittle lamestream press today saying, oh, well done to Abdul, who got involved and basically saved lives. Well, I say the same. But now there's some debate, and this is how stupid our media is. Is he a Christian or was he a Muslim? Does it matter? What he was a human being who thought people shooting innocent people on a beach was wrong. And so he intervened and put his own life on the line. It's not about being a Muslim or not being a Muslim. And even if he is a Muslim, that doesn't lessen the horror that these other two inflicted, these Pakistani Muslims. What we're seeing in the UK is now mirrored elsewhere, including Australia, where mass mobilisation and open hatred are waved through by the coppers, waved through by the state legislators, and even by the Prime Minister of Australia in the name of context, complexity, diversity. Well, it's got to stop. Jew hate has got to stop. Now, as you know, Sydney's held up as a success story of multicultural harmony. I guess most of the time it is. They've had hardly any of these violent outbreaks. I looked it up today. I think they've only got 12 on their watch list. But this guy was under watch. But that didn't stop hundreds of thousands, 300,000 they estimate, of Aussies marching across Sydney Harbour in protest linked to the war in Gaza. It's pathetic. Of course, peaceful protest is a democratic right. But what matters is what's tolerated on those marches. Would it be okay for me to march down a street saying, "I hate Muslims"? Yeah? From Bradford to the sea. Would that be acceptable? No, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. And what annoys me is that we are tolerant. We are not a racist country whatsoever. There are some racists and we always weed them out. But at the moment, the news is dominated by Nigel Farage and what he said or didn't say. They're still going on about it today when he was 13 years old. How about talking about people shouting death to the Jews? How about that? How about that? Because those crowds in Sydney, those chants, those signs, those symbols, and we've seen them in London as well, crossed a very clear line from political criticism into Jew hate, anti-Semitic hatred. Not against the government, not against the policy, against Jews. And instead of a firm and unambiguous condemnation, what we heard was hesitation. We've even had Nick Robinson, jumped up little twat, who's on the Today programme on Radio 4. He couldn't just talk about the horrendous events of Sydney. He had to try and contextualise it into Islamophobia and attacks on Muslims. He makes me sick. But that's the BBC. They have not treated, and they've had to admit it, their coverage of Gaza was biased. The BBC. I don't know whether it's the same in Australia, but this is where we're going wrong. Why don't Jews matter? Is it a game of top trumps racism? Oh, a Pakistani Muslim, that's worth a lot more points than a Jew. What? They survived the Holocaust. Oh, okay, we'll give them a few more points. Somebody from the Holocaust did die in Sydney. This is just a sick world we're living in. And then we're not allowed to criticise. It's even got to... I remember when I worked for The Sun, I did a massive article about banning the burqa. Now, if you say that openly, people immediately think you're a racist. What? To ban something that clearly subjugates women? No. No. And also isn't even part of that religion. It was added later. Also, whilst we're on that subject, ask yourself a question. In the United Arab Emirates, in Dubai, places like that, do you think they would allow these sorts of protests? No, they would not. We are so... Well, we're not. It's our leadership on all of the political sides. Incitement is wrong. Unless, of course, it's politically inconvenient, i.e., is it because I is a Muslim? That is exactly how enforcement now looks. It's two-tier. There's two sets of rules. And I think it's got to stop. When Tommy Robinson has a march, they're still looking for people to arrest. When people went crazy after the Southport slaughter of 3 little girls, they were in prison before the sweat stains under their armpits were dry. And now they want to get rid of trial by jury. I wonder why. And where is Starmer when there's an outrage? Starmer went to Southport, he got called a wanker and he ran away. Only stopping to call anybody who protested a far-right thug. Where's he been since the woman in Warsaw got the screwdriver in her head 19 times by an illegal immigrant? Where was he when the chap got murdered in the street walking his dogs by an illegal immigrant? And where is he on the two Afghan illegal immigrants who raped a 15-year-old girl in a park in beautiful Leamington Spa? Where's the big condemnation? Nowhere. Last night He had a lovely shot. It was beautifully filmed of him lighting his Hanukkah candles in the window of Downing Street. How convenient, Sakia, that you had a professional photographer there when you did it. You stinking, filthy, spineless hypocrite. Agree or disagree? By the way, this is the John Gaunt podcast. I'm coming to your comments in a moment. It's fear. It's not tolerance. Because when massive crowds do any of the things I've just described under the banner of a so-called fashionable cause like Free Palestine, well, what do you have to do to get a free Palestine? It's that kind of stupidity. The response suddenly becomes cautious, even apologetic. So before the police smash you across the head with a truncheon or a baton, they ask your permission. They don't do that with Tommy Robinson's crew, do they? So this isn't tolerance. I'm telling you, it's fear. I think our police live in fear of these extremists, these Islamists, and that doesn't help the community itself. I remember, again, when I was on BBC London, do you remember Captain Hook, Abu Hamza, or whatever his name was? He had taken over the mosque. And I remember falling into the trap saying, these bloody Muslims praying in the park, playing in the street, praying in the street, causing all this trouble. And then I had a phone call from a Muslim who said, I can't give you my name, but I'm on the committee of the mosque. This man has taken over, but the police won't do anything. It's mobsters like him. Now he's in a high security prison in America, of course. They know how to deal with them. This man, of course, is the one who hated our country. He only had one hand. I don't know how he managed, but every week he managed to pick up his dole. Oh, yes, he did. And that's what's wrong. And I'm telling you, people in authority were scared of people like him. And Amjam Ramajam Chowdhury. I interviewed him several times. I know what he is. He's he is a bloody gangster, right? A religious gangster. So what I'm saying is there's fear. There's fear in the streets and panic of Westminster. And fear from government is contagious. It tells the extremists who live amongst us they can push even further. It tells minorities that they're on their own because basically we give up, or government starts talking about the block vote, or government starts talking about all Muslims are the same. But they would accuse me of being a racist if they were attacking me, but it's okay for them. No, it's not. No, it's not. There are communities, I should think, who are living in fear. It also tells the wider public, whether we're Muslims or not, that the rules are no longer applied equally. That's how you get two-tier justice, two-tier policing, and a two-tier society. Now, Manchester and Sydney are not the same city. I've never even been to Sydney. I'll have an invitation if you want me to come. Starmer and Albanese are not the same leader, but the pattern is identical. Known risks, clear warning signs, and an absolute reluctance, shitting bricks to act early. And then strong statements only after the damage is done and the body bags are being zipped up. This is what I mean by a dangerous game, a game of Russian roulette. Not because politicians necessarily want harm, but because they're gambling that restraint, delay, and careful wording will somehow prevent it. That these savages, the Islamists, the ones who are doing these crimes, that they will play by our rules. But history tells the opposite. Extremism doesn't fade when ignored. It grows when tested and not challenged. So the question isn't whether we value tolerance. The question has to be, is tolerance, and whether tolerance still has boundaries, and whether our leaders are willing to enforce those boundaries. And that's the vital question that Keir Starmer and Anthony Albanese, or whatever his name is, need to answer. Do you agree with me, or do you disagree? The West is about to fall unless we get leaders with a backbone, leaders who are willing to take this on, and a security service who are going to intervene earlier. Or perhaps, just a little idea, we'd let less people in. Perhaps we go as far as Trump and say there are certain countries that we're not going to take people from anymore. That'll be shouted down as racist, fascist, won't it? But the first duty, and I repeat this, of any government, of any leader, is the protection of its people. But do you feel safe? Thank you. No good on a watch list. They shouldn't be here at all, says Pete Dawson. We're opening the comments now if you want to say anything. Pam Millett says on Facebook, 40,000 on the watch list. That's complacency. Nick Hogan says this is not about race nor religion on Facebook. It's about time we talk about culture, and particularly about cultures that don't align with ours. That's what I've been trying to say, Nick. Thank you for summing it up. Pam Millett, Labour have known about these rapist gangs for years. It's been happening until a majority of Labour within a majority of Labour-run councils. London by Khan. Can we really expect Starmer to investigate his own Labour people that have been allowing these gangs to thrive? I don't think so. Well, it isn't just Labour councils, Pam, to be fair, but you're right. It has to be all of them have to be investigated. Anybody else want to talk about what I've said? Politicians are responsible for all this shite, says Mark is fine. Thank you, Robin Day, on YouTube. Den Spinks, I think there is still anti-Semitism within the Labour government, though it's all kept hush. Now, Den, that's a very interesting point. Because, of course, under Corbyn, there was all this purge, wasn't there? After Corbyn, sorry, when Starmer came in. You think it's still there. But, of course, Starmer is married to a Jewish woman. I've never understood it. I don't understand why people are so anti-Jewish. I just don't get it. I also don't understand why we don't support Israel more, one of our closest allies. They're the ones who are trying to operate a democracy. And I don't understand why we've got to a stage where there are no rules. There are no expectations anymore. Anyway, if you want to comment, feel free. This is the John Gaunt Show. I'm normally here at 6 o'clock every night. I will be later on if you want to join in, Monday to Thursday. Best way of following me, or the best way of helping me, is to go to John Gaunt TV on YouTube. A little pop-up comes up and says, do you want to subscribe? Say yes, doesn't cost any money. And then it means you'll always know if I'm doing extra shows. Like today, this is an extra show. I did one yesterday as well. It just helps you keep informed. And likewise, if you like what I'm doing or saying, please feel free to donate. If you click on the YouTube screen, if you just click the $sign, you can donate whatever you want. A couple of quid, 10 quid. What do Australia have? Dollars. Some Australia will convert it, whatever. Or go to www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt and donate there anything from a $5 upwards. Please help me out. It's obviously totally independent, this. You wouldn't get this on the BBC. John Allen says it's been going on since the 70s. What has? The rape gangs or just everything? I think you're right. Kim Krasnicki. Gaunty, what a surprise. I'm glad Facebook sent me this notification. No problem, Kim. Now you know I'm here. Join John Gaunt TV on YouTube and you'll never miss a show. It's free. Who's this from? Miss Chloe Celeste. That's a nice name. John, you and I and millions of others have watched for decades. I'm 56. This disaster unfolding. We voted against this invasion repeatedly. If 1% of the 4 million Muslims here are Islamists, well, that'll be carnage. Well, I don't know what the percentage is. What I do know, I've got Muslim friends, and I'm not just saying that I have, but I'm not anti-Muslim. I'm anti-Islamist fanatics and terrorists, and I hope you are too, which I think you are by the sound of it. She also does say, I'd like to see how much stronger condemnation from their community leaders, but I'm not holding my breath. That's a fair point. That is a fair point. Although I did notice in Australia, the Muslim funeral director guy, they're refusing to deal with the body. And you know, normally when a Muslim dies, don't they have to be buried like Jews within 24 hours? They're refusing to handle the body. So I think that's positive. He should just be chucked in a trash can, shouldn't he? Anyway, although that would be too good for him. Denise Deacon, what I can't believe is the hate of Jews. You and me too, Denise. I don't know exactly what's happened in Gaza, other than a lot of it is propaganda. I don't know if Israel has done terrible things, but I do know Hamas has. However, I also know Jewish people aren't to blame, because all I see is that they're very peaceful people. I know there hasn't been a Jewish person. I know there hasn't been a Jewish person who hasn't committed a terrorist attack. The hate for Jews has got to stop. We owe it to them. Brilliant points. Brilliant points. Thank you, Denise. Removing trials by juries, the government will be able to easily prosecute all of those who speak out against this diabolical Labour government. It will be government rule at total end of democracy. Exactly. Exactly. Thank you, Pam. Oh, now we've got some criticism. Somebody who's so brave, he won't even use a proper name. OTG 1433 says, yawn, yawn, another talking head. Talking head? You think that's what I'm doing? Fair enough. Do you know what? You don't have to watch. Go and watch something else. Go and get your prejudices reinforced somewhere else. Off you go. See you later. What is it with Starmer and Ukraine rent boys? Well, at the moment, that's a legal case, so we're not going to go there. I thought we were just going to talk about Ukraine. No, I don't feel safe anymore in my country. They're starting to move Muslim men into my town. You mean asylum seekers or flip-flop warriors? I know what you mean, Pam. Listen. Starmer today. Starmer's going to Ukraine again today, isn't it? Or Germany. They're having a meeting again about his coalition of the useless and about how to bring peace to Ukraine. I really don't want to upset you, Mr. Starmer. Shouldn't your first priority be Britain? What about all those girls who've been raped? What about the perilous state of our country at the moment? It's like a tinderbox. Why are you constantly in Ukraine? Why are you constantly parading around the world? I'm just surprised we haven't heard, Starmer's going on a visit to Australia to show solidarity with the Australian people. That'll make their bloody day, won't it? But I bet you, I wouldn't be surprised, it's only because it's Christmas, that he won't hop onto his private jet, because he's trying to save the planet, as you know, and gone. What do you reckon? If that comes true, don't you claim it. That was my idea, because I think he will. Hi, John. What happened to Reform this morning on YouTube? It never started. I don't know. I don't work for them. I don't know why they're doing a press conference every week. I do know GB News take it, and I think it's a bit pathetic, because sometimes they might have something really important to say, but sometimes it's just like, it's a bit like North Korea. It's a bit like Starmer with his videos, isn't it? I don't like it. I think it's pretty crap, to be honest, but I don't run their publicity department, so I can't help you. Vote Advance UK. They're up and running now as a party. Mario Pantelli. Well, is that all you've got to say? Do you not want to contribute to the debate? Because that's not really a contribution. That's you just trying to get an advert. Starmer just seemed to be very interested in Ukraine. I wonder why. Well, because Denise, he sees himself as a world statesman. You know that. When they asked him, does he prefer Davos to Westminster, he said Davos. It's obvious. He's not interested. He's looking for the choo-choo. He wants to get on the gravy train to the UK, EU, or to the UN. Anyway, look, I'm going to stop there. I will be back tonight at 6 with a different story, different subject, unless there's big developments on this. If you do want to donate, that would be really helpful. Send me a super sticker or whatever on YouTube by clicking the $, or go to www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. Please join my YouTube channel, subscribe to it, John Gaunt TV. There's loads of material there. And if you're watching in Australia or listening in Australia, check me out, John Gaunt TV on YouTube. Simple as that. If you're listening on a podcast, don't forget you can also see it with pictures, widescreen available, just by joining John Gaunt TV. A lot of people, they watch it and then they also take it out when they're walking the dog so they can hear it again. My words of wisdom or something like that. Okay. Right, I'll see you later. Thanks very much indeed for joining in. My name's John Gaunt. This has been John Gaunt TV. I will be back later for another video or another podcast, depending how you consume me. Just keep consuming. Until then, if you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, 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 don't forget to tell them you love them. See ya.